Yeah, hi, Michael. Sorry for the delay. So I had a network issue and there was a previous session. So yeah, let's wait for a couple of more minutes and we'll start the session, Michael. Recording. Okay, so in today's session, since in yesterday's session we saw the user management, the basics of user management and the group management also. In today's session, we'll see the permissions or the file permissions, which is also a very important concept, especially for Linux. Okay, so what is permission and why we need a file permission? And let me give a Windows example so that easily you can relate to. Um, yeah, so let's take some text document. This is an empty document, by the way. So you just go to the properties, go to security, and you see these are all the groups and user names who have access to this document, right? But you see, these permissions are dynamically changing once I click the user and admin or someone, right? So why? Because this file, these are all the permissions, by the way. So let me quickly explain what are all the permissions and later let me explain. So if you see, there is a read, file permissions. So the first thing is a read, write, and execute. So you see read and execute, right? And there is some more like modify, full control, and special permission. So special permission is also there in Linux also, but we will come to that later session, not now. Okay. But as of now, what is read? So you have only a read permission. So means as a user or the person who have access to that file, you can only read that file. You can't edit that. So which means, let me open a text file like this. You see, I can't, I'm trying to type, it won't because it is in a read only mode, right? So that is what this quick look mode is. Whereas if I double click, I can type it, and if I save it, you see, I did save it, and let me close. If I open it again, whatever changes again, it is there, which is write permission, right? So that's what, like, read is only to read that file, and you can't make any changes to the text file, especially. And write permission is to make changes to the text file and save it. And if you have the right permission only, it will be your whatever changes you made will be reflecting once you saved. And how about execute? So this is a new thing, or as a text document, it is not, there is no use of execute, but as a script, or let's say a script is also a text file only, right? Just that extension will be in a .sh or .exe, right? It is an executable file, but underlying there is a script or something underlying it that would be in a text, right? So some code would be there or some script would be there. So in order to execute that, you should have the execute permission. And for a directory, so this is where Linux differs from your Windows. So let me quickly complete this one. So you have all the permission for administrator. The same thing goes for Linux also. Admin will have almost any system related files. Admin will have read and write access for sure, right? So that's what this is. And let me close it and let me maximize this one. And so you have files and directories, right? So let me put special permission on top because we'll come back to that in later. And what is files? So files are nothing but a text file, and here we call it as just files, okay? And how about directory? So directories are nothing but folders in your Windows. So the directories by default, it will have execute permission. So why? Because in Linux, the let's say you're going inside this directory, this double click action, whatever you're doing, right? That is also a executable action. So that's the reason the it will have execute access is there for even directories, and it must be there for directories. That is the underlying note. Let me give it as a note only. Execute permission must be available for directories. And it won't be available by default for, and it won't be available files. So by default, files doesn't have execute permission, but directories does, and it must be there for directories for sure, right? So let's see what is read, write, and execute. R, W, and here it is called as X. Okay, so now let's go back to our server, and we are in /root, and let me do LL to see the list of files and directories. So let me take the first two files. Sorry, first two file and directory. So okay, one sec. Yeah. Okay. So this one. So you can ignore. Okay. First thing, let me explain what is these all, or what is the actual line you're seeing here. So the very first thing you're seeing, this one is nothing but the permissions, or what we are going to see now. Let me give this one, file permissions. And the next, this one you see here, right? That is nothing but a hard link of that file. So by default, there will be one, because that is the this is the original file, or the only file for this uh, name, or not name, by the way. So the link, I will explain it later, guys, because it would confuse you as of now. So the next one is root. So this one is the user ownership. And the next, again, it will be a root for this file. It is a group ownership of that file only. That is a good thing about Linux, that you have separately user ownership and group ownership. And the next thing you're seeing is a size, the 2743, right? So that is a size in bytes. And there's a November, some date and time, right? It is a last modified time. That is the thing, not last accessed time. So both are different. So let me again open this one. You see, December 3rd, it has been created and it has been modified on December 3rd. So let me quickly open and type something, save, close, and let me see now. You see, last modified and accessed time is changed, right? So it is a last modified time. So both are different, right? So don't confuse this with the created time. So this is a modified time only, and this is the file name, right? So file name, okay? So that is the meaning of all these lines, and there is a meaning for this dot and this hyphen. Everything I'll explain it in this second. So what is the first thing you see here is this hyphen something. So let me compare these two. So the same thing will be followed for a directory, but the very first thing you can easily differentiate between a directory and a file is the color coding, right? So the color code would be different for a directory and a file. If that is not sufficient, or if it is disabled, in that case, from the permissions, easily you can figure out whether it is a file or directory. So if there is a hyphen, right? So hyphen means it is file. Okay, so if it is D mentioned in the first section, it is directory. And first section means this one. So let me dissect this two separately. So firstly, if you see no permission or nothing, like mentioned as hyphen. So wherever I mention hyphen, there is no permission in that space. Okay. So here nothing is there, whereas here there is D, which means directory. So this is the very first thing you should consider, whether it is a directory or a file. So if it is a directory, obviously D will be here. If it is a file, it will be only hyphen, right? So the same concept applies for throughout the server. So you just remember this one, and you have some random like read, write, execute permissions are given in a random way. Obviously, it is not given in a random way for sure, but there is some underlying meaning for each and every section. So we will see that in detail. So let me take let me touch a new file and create a new directory, new dir and ls-ld file1 new dir1. So this should always use ls-l. It will list, right? But if you do ls-l only, you see it will show like this. Inside directory, there will be no file. So like this, it will go inside this directory and list all the files. Obviously, there is no files inside that, right? So that's the reason it's giving us total 0. So if you always want to see a directory's properties, that directory properties, right? So like this, if you want to see this info of a directory, you should do ls-ld. And for a file, it's not needed, by the way. So if you mention also, there is no issue. But ls-ld, you should remember that. And you see, this is the information we need. So just now we created these two files, right? Now, as we saw just now, we just dissect that first section and the rest of the sections, let's see. But before proceeding further, let me quickly change the group so that you will have an idea how it works, okay? So don't worry about the command, I will explain it. Um, yeah, right. So the first thing it's we dissected these one, and the next one we should dissect is the first three entries. So each of these are the first three is for user, and the next three is for group, and last three is for others. So this is how it works. Now let me only take this permission and paste it here. So let me remove this hyphen since we don't need it as of now. So first three is for user, next is for group, last is for others, and let me remove this dot also. Okay. So this is that permission of this file called as file1, right? So now what is this user group and others? This is a new thing, right? So why? Because this file, and not only a file, any file and directory follows a ownership. The same thing goes in your Windows also, right? So there is some group and directory, sorry, group and users. You see here, you see group or usernames. So you should give a ownership for each and every file. And for the people who don't come under those things are called as others, or who are not part of either these two, they all will be considered as others. In our server, there is around 40 plus users are there, right? Including system users. All are considered as others for only this file. And how about user and group? So user is nothing but root in this case, or in this file. And for here group is mentioned, right? In this case, it is sysadmins, right? So now for others, as I told, other than these two people, root and sysadmins, any group or any user in the server are called as others. All comes under this last section. Sorry, last this dissection is others. Okay, so how and what is this actual meaning of this RWR, right? So you might ask that. Obviously, it is read write, but there is a pattern here. So now let's see how binary works, right? Or how binary affects this one. Let me quickly type the table. So you need not remember this for sure, but it is easy actually. It is nothing but your binary you might have learned in your electrics or sorry, electronics, right? So 0. So the first thing is your binaries, which is 0 and 1. And that is obviously a machine language, right? So now let me type it in the decimal form so that we can understand it. 4. Next thing is 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is the one. And one sec, actually. Let me do it in the opposite way. Sorry. Okay, so this is how it is. So now, yeah. So this is the decimal and this is a binary of it, right? So why I typed these all, right? So that there should be a meaning of it, right? So why? Because your permission follows this decimal and binary. How means, let me type it. So you just type RWX and wherever you see 0, right? You just give hyphen, hyphen, and you just give the equivalent value in the top. So what you see in the top X, right? So just type X here. So what is the first one? Hyphen, W, hyphen. How about this one? Can someone, Leo or Michael, put it in the chat? What will be the permission here? So you just, wherever you see 0, give hyphen. Wherever you see 1 and 1, you just multiply and give. Not multiplication exactly, just whatever you see here. You just mention that one. What would be the permission? Correct, Michael, hyphen 1 1. But what is the 1 1 section you see here? Let me do one thing. So in order for you to easily understand, um, yeah. So uh, yeah. So whatever you see in this section, you just give R wherever you see 1, right? So W wherever you see 1 in this row only. The same thing goes for X. Wherever you see 1, there X will be replaced. So now you just give the answer. So hyphen WX, perfect. So similarly, how about this one? R, perfect. So now you got the concept. R hyphen X, this one RW hyphen. How about the last one? Let's see who gets it. It's the easiest one. So let's see. Perfect. RWX. Great. So that's what. So it is nothing but 0 to 7, and you will be understanding why there is a number scheme. Okay, so as of now, it will be a bit foreign for you, and understanding is a bit complex as of now for sure. But this is how it works. And there is one more hack or a shortcut. Okay, so from 0 to 7, not 0, from 1 to 7, easily you can form using 4 to 1, right? So let's say if you want 6, you just add 4 plus 2. If you want 3, you just add 2 plus 1. The same thing goes for the whole numbers, right? So in that case, if you remember, what is the binary for 4? It is 100. For 2, it is 010. For 1, it is 001. So what would be the permission here? R hyphen hyphen and R hyphen, sorry, hyphen W hyphen and hyphen hyphen X. So it is nothing but read for 4, write for 2, 1 for X. So many people do remember only these three numbers. You can ignore the whole table, but it is easy actually for you to remember. But yeah, so many don't, or many ignore this whole table. Instead, they will remember only these three. And how these three works is, so as I told, 2 plus 1 is 3, right? So how about the permissions? Just do 2 plus 1 is 3. And what is for 3? It is 0, 1, 1. And how about you add these two permissions? So hyphen plus hyphen is hyphen only. So W and hyphen, it will be W. So WX. You're getting the point, right? So easily you can form this whole table just with these three numbers. So if you remember these three numbers, you can form the whole table. So that's the concept. And people do use this one a lot. And why this is important is based on the numbers only, you will be providing or there are another method also. I will show you what is that. That is even easier. You need not worry about none of this decimal or binary concept itself. Directly you can provision the access for group and users and others. But this is also needed because in some cases there would be, let's say, a ticket in your queue for asking kindly provision access for 655, right? So in that case, you should not be thinking that, okay, what is 655? Let's see who is giving the right answer. Just 655. What is the binary or not binary equivalent? Just give the permission equivalent for this one. What is 6? It's already in the screen, but anyhow, let's see. No, Michael. So for 6, it is RW hyphen. For 5, it is R hyphen X. Again 5, right? R hyphen X. So this forms 655. So this is how actually the permission would be. Yeah. So don't worry, you'll get used to this one. 6. So Leo, the one you are given is for 633. Okay, so for 655, this one, right? So this is 5. So R hyphen X. Yeah. So don't worry, actually, this for the first time, for sure, no one gets it right for the first time. So don't worry. But the point is, this is how a question would be in your work environment. They might ask in the ticket that, okay, please give me full permission. What is a full permission? Obviously, it is 777. So why I'm trying to tell it in 3 times is the first 6 is this is for user. This is for group, right? So this file, and this is for others. That's the reason we mentioned that 3 times or in 3 separate numbers. So for user, it is read write permission. For group, it is read and execute permission. For others, it is read and execute. Okay. So that is the permissions. So now let's quickly see. So we created these 2 files. So now let's see what is the actual permission which is here. Again, you ignore this D for now, space. First thing you dissect. Let's see who gets it. It can be wrong, Leo or Michael, no issues, but try to answer it. Perfect. So Leo got it right. So it is 755. Correct. So, right. So similarly, you need to see for this file. Let's see. How about this one? Perfect. Michael got it. So each has a point. So good. So the thing is that it's easy, right? So easily you can remember this table, or you can easily remember at least these 3 numbers. If you remember this, easy you can add it, and you can figure out, right? So that's how it works. And so why this is important is, as I told, we need that number and permission to be granted only through this number, right? So now, okay, so we created just now this file and directory. Now you might ask, okay, so then this would be the default permission for a file. It is, so for file it is 644, right? So 644 is the default permission. And how about directory? It is 755. So you might think that, or you might ask, okay, this would be the default permission, right? So since just now we created for file and directory. So you might think that, okay, just now we created a file or empty file and directory. So this is what pops up. So you might think that, okay, this should be the default one. Obviously, no, right? So the default permission for a file is 666. For a directory, it is 777. How and why we are not getting that, right? So that should be your next question. And many companies or many institutes do miss to how are you typing both? Okay, so how I'm typing both lines at the same time, right? So that is your question. So like this, right? So this is possible in your Notepad++, Michael. So in Notepad++, you just hold Alt and select any number of lines. So if I select, you see, I can type anything, right? So yeah, so you should um, do that. Only this is possible in your Notepad++. Okay, so yeah, and you will get used to Notepad++ in your work environment, because a lot of shortcuts is there in your here, like line operations to remove empty lines, and so many things are there, like join lines. So yeah, anyhow, you will get used to once you start working as a sysadmin. So yeah. So coming back to this one, like why we are not getting that 666 and 777 while we create a empty file and directory. Right away, why we are not getting it is, so many institutes or many companies do miss this concept called as UMask. Okay, so what is UMask and why it should be considered, and why it changes the whole perspective of the permissions altogether. Why? Because The first thing is umask is nothing but user permission mask. Okay, so or you are masking the permission for a user. Uh, depends on the requirement. So let me give a scenario. So there is a user or there is a auditor who is going to audit your team or your whatever files owned by your team, right? So he need a only the right access, or he should not do a sorry he should not only do a read access. He should not make any changes to those files, right? The right access should be ignored or removed for this guy, but he right away you can't do that. For one file it is fine, or even 10 files you can do manually. For thousands of files which is being residing in the server for let's say 10 years, you can't simply just for one guy you can't go and change it, right? So that's obvious, no one will do that. So what would be the remedy for this one? Or let's say he is a new joinee, or let's say he how to say, if it is a new server, and whatever people who create in that server or whatever files created by the people in that server should not have execute access by default. So these kind of scenarios, right? So this kind of scenarios are the one are the main reason for having a umask. So why? Because in this auditor example, so you need let's say this guy should not have write access, and he must only do read access. And in that case, you should create a mask for whatever files created by that guy, right? So you should create a mask, or exactly, let me quickly explain this one. What is the actual umask value with you see here? For root user, it is you can ignore the first zero. Okay, so if I explain that, that will complex as of now. We'll come back to that. This 022, right? And if I switch to some other user, let's say user one, and type umask, you see 002, and how this affects. So let me quickly create the same file name, right? So touch and mkdir. Just let me copy paste the same file name and directory name and execute this one. You see, this files are created obviously, but you can compare the permission. So this is for user account. Let's see the difference between. So then you can easily understand the power or usage of umask. Okay, so this is for root account. So root account, obviously, let me fill it already. You guys found this one, right? So it is sorry 644 for file, and it is 755. How about this one? It is 664. And for this one, can someone mention in the chat what is the permission for this directory? 775. Yeah, Michael got it right. So 775. So it is R-X, right? So yeah, it is 5. Perfect. So you see the same server, the same lines also. I didn't even type, right? So same file names, but it does make a difference. Why? Because this umask is the culprit, or that's the main reason, right? It's differing. So why? Because as I told, what is the default permission for a file? It is 666, right? Now just you just subtract the umask value 022 should be subtracted from the Okay, so minus. What would be the answer? It is 6 minus 0, 6. 6 minus 2, it is 4, 4. This is what you see for a root user. And the root user's umask value is 0, 2, 2. Now you are getting it right. So if you create a file, or not only a file, any file in the whole server will be by default affected by the umask value. The same thing goes for directory also. And you might ask, okay, is there a separate umask value separately for directory and file? Obviously, no. The same umask value will be available for both. So you just type this one, enter. So 7 minus 0, 7. 7 minus 2, 5, 5. That's what you get here. So let's see the same concept for user. So what is the umask value you end up for a user? It is 0, 0, 2, right? So 0, 0, 2. What is the minus 6, 6, 4? That's what you see there. And 777, 0, 0, 2. It is 7, 7, 5. Now you're getting the actual permissions you see in your server, right? So umask is the one determining the permissions or any permission of the user. Okay, now you might, let's create a scenario. So the scenario which I explained you, right? So let's switch to user called as Michael and see the umask value. It is 0002. So so how to change this umask value? So let me change the umask value so that the others should be, or other files, the files permission for others should be 0. So what would be the umask value? Can someone, it can be wrong. Can someone mention in the chat? So if I minus from 666, only the others should be 0. What would be the umask value? It doesn't unmask the like umask is nothing but it will create a mask on top of that existing default permission, Leo. Okay, so yeah, so now you will understand clearly since we are going to see uh, with an example. So like let's say for others or any files, what is the question again? Okay, so the question is a file. Okay, let me touch a file. Touch file one. So as of now, the file one permission is 664. By default, any user in the whole server, it will be the umask value is 002. That is understandable, right? But I want to change the umask value so that the others should be 0. So what would I do that, or what would be the umask value so that I will end up with a no permission for others? What is the umask value I should give? Perfect. Leo got it right. So it would be 006, right? So if I subtract it, 006 means obviously it is 6 minus 0 is 0. Sorry, 6 minus 0 is 6. 6, 0. That's it. 6 minus 6 is 0. So there will be no permission. So let's quickly check it. And this is how you change the umask value. Okay, so we just do 006. That's it. And it is not a persistent way to change the umask value. I will come back to how to make it as a persistent entry. As of now, if I reboot the server, again it will be defaulting it back to 002 for a user. it is not a variable per se, Leo, but how to say, like it depends on the requirement. So you see, now let me touch file 2. Okay, so now let's compare between file 1 and file 2. You see, like it depends on the requirement. So you will never touch, to be frank, in your company, you will never change the UMask value until if it is there is a niche requirement. Like, okay, this guy for sure he needs no one except him. No one should have any access. Which means you should not give any permission for group and others. So in that case, you will do UMask for file, right? So it is 066. So if you do that, and if you touch a file, let's say file 3, confidential file, let's say it is. So this file compared to the default one, it will be, you see, no permission is being granted by default, and any number of files created by that user, no permissions will be there for others and group. So instead of you doing this, so actually there is one more command to change the permission. Instead of you changing every file individually, that is a lot of work, right? So instead of you creating that file by default, it will create a 644. Again, you need to change that permission to 600. So one file, it is fine. For at least even 10 file, it is fine. But if you want to do thousands of file, obviously no one can do that many tasks, right? So in that case, this is the remedy for that. So if he want a secure file, or if this is the requirement by him, so you will do that, or this is the easiest way to do that, right? And and one more thing is UMask value won't be changed for a root user. It is like the last thing anyone would do is change messing around the UMask value of a root user. So especially you can change the UMask value for any other user, but for root user, you need to think twice, right? So yeah, okay. So um, this UMask value is for a masking the value or the permission depends on the user requirements, Leo. Okay. So let's say this user called as Michael, he want a file to be confidential so that only he has access to it. And there is no even executable access. By default, there is no, right? So there should not be access for group and others by default, and n number of files created by that guy should not have. You see, let me do a touch any file name, something, you see, LLFT something, you see, it will affect the whole session of this guy until it is rebooted. So the point is, instead of you go ahead and changing each and every file, you are creating a mask so that it will automatically create that confidential type or confidential way uh, while it is created itself. That permission would be right. So it is an easiest way, right? So that's the reason this exists, and that's what, like, it is a very niche thing. So you will never do this one. Mostly you will never consider doing this, only for very very specific requirement. Let's say he is a director, or he needs us, like as I told, a auditor, right? So in that case, it should be a very very specific requirement, and you, in that case only, you will be performing at least this operation, or you will never do that. But this UMask is the sole responsibility that the default permission is affected. Whatever default file you create, right? UMask is the one responsible for that. So that's how important it is, first thing. And where do we change this one persistently? Now, next question should be that one, right? So let me show you first thing for the root user, and I highly don't recommend to change the root user for sure, but this is the file for you to change it actually. login.defs, right? You see, umask 022. Let me even copy paste this one in the notes so that it is only for a particular. No, Leo. So I just for example, I'm giving you, it is for any requirement. Let's say your team, right? Let's say you're part of a backup team or any team. Your file should not be accessed by others. They should not even read those files. So in that case, your umask value always will be 006. You're getting the point, right? So it should be like the others should not have access by default. So yeah, just the auditing, I given an example that those guys will be scrutinizing each and every file for security, right? So that's the reason I given an audit example. It applicable for any user and any requirement, depends on again the requirement only. If they want to it to be so secure, you can by default while creation itself you can change the permission. Why again? Because as a root user you can change the permission for any file, but as an end user you won't. You can change the permission the files you own, but you can't do for any files you see, right? So that's the important thing. So this is the explanation in the notes of sorry, in this config file. You can even go through this one. Okay, so but this is the umask default value for root user. And how about for a normal user? So for a normal user, you have a hidden file. We didn't cover this one. So just for this topic, I didn't cover this one while we do the user creation. Why? Because you see these hidden files, right? So, or if you do LL, you can't see those files. Why? Because that's how it is. Like these are all the profile files and like user specific configuration files. You can put it like that. Okay. So these files will be affected for your each and every files create, sorry, each and every user created in the server. So let me quickly create a new user. So user add user 2. Okay. And if I switch to this guy and do ls-l, it won't show anything, but ls-la, you see the same files are here. So how and why it has been created, right? So now let's go back to one path, which is etc skill. So skill path is nothing but the same file. You see the files last modified time. It is actual same file only. It is copying all these 4 files. Actually, there is 5. This cache you can ignore. Actually, it is just a temporary file. It will be removed for after some time. Okay. So, but the point is this 4 files you see in the skill path, right? So this will be so this is the one responsible of copying. Let's say you create a user. First thing it will do is copy this 4 files, and the last one is not a file, it is a directory, by the way. That will also will be copied to that new user's home path. Okay, so that's the thing. And why this is important is, as I told, let's see for this guy's sorry, user 2, right? So this guy's new mask value is 002. Okay. So now let me quickly change the mask value to 006. And this will stay only for this session. Or let's say if I reboot, it will be gone. So how to make this umask value persistent is to edit the bash rc file. Okay, so this bash rc or this, let me just show you the cat of these files. You see, cat this one. So we will come back to this files once we see the aliases. Okay, so even now we can see but let's come back to that later because permissions itself would take some time, and we'll come back to this one. But that's what for bash profile, you can create a environment or startup program. So let's say you provide a path here or some let's say this is a service account. Last session we saw, right? So once you log into that service account, it will show you that service status every time. Once anyone opens that service account, it will show the service status. Obviously, you can do that. It is in a start kind of like a bootstrap. You are bootstrapping the status. So like that, you have bash rc. Okay, so this file you can mention, you see, user specific aliases and functions. So whatever alias you want, you can mention here. So here is where, or this file is where you would mention the, you can mention here. So don't mention at the last, it won't work actually. Okay. So you just mention in between these two. So you just type umask space that umask value 006 and save it. This is just a VI editor. And now after saving, you should do source dot. It is kind of like a refreshing. Instead of closing the session and opening it again, you're just typing source. So that will like kind of like a refresh the file and make sure that the server knows that okay, there is a modification in that file that should be affected right away. Okay, so that's what source means. And yeah, so that's what we changed. So our head dot head minus file dot bash rc. Sorry, 8. Yeah. So you see the umask value. Yeah. So that's what we added. And now any files created under this guy, touch file 1, you see it will be 660. We will see that Leo. So, but the difference between as of now, let me quickly explain the bash profile, right? So that will also load, you see, bash RC will be loaded in bash profile, and you can do more task in bash profile. Okay, so bash RC will be needed. So you don't think that okay, there is no use of bash RC. Bash profile is like a kind of user settings in your Windows. So you have this account settings in your Windows, right? Which is specific for only that guy. So similarly, you have bash profile, which is specifically you can mention like aliases and like some environment variables and some startup apps. So for that one particular user called as user two, but this also would load, you see, bash RC only. So this is what we done now. Like we done source, right? So this is what source means. It will just load that file. Okay, so you see source and this file also. Let me, did I printed it? Yeah. So it will be loading this one. So user specific environments. So you have environment variable in your Windows, right? So I'm not making it too complicated, just to explain. So there is system environment variables, user environment variables. So similarly, you can create for a individual user also based on the requirement. Okay, so that is the use of bash RC. Mostly you will never edit this one, but you will add aliases. Okay, so alias and just you will mention alias, let's say startup equal to some app name. Okay, so let me do it now only so that bash RC user specific aliases, right? So let me press O alias. Um, let's say health check equals So whatever path, right? So what is the actual commands? So let's see, bin df hyphen h p semicolon uptime. Uptime also I need to give the exact path, right? Bin uptime. So let's see if it works. Health check. So source dash rc. Yeah. So uptime is working. So this one is df. Um, okay. Correct. But I guess we should give in the double quotes. But you're getting the point, right? So once we type health check, actually I didn't type health check, right? So once you type health check, it will give this output. No. Okay. So you should give it in single quotes or something is there. I will tell you that. Okay. So don't worry about that. But yeah. So if I type health check, it should give that output. Okay. So let me. Yeah. You see, if I source the bash profile also, it will try this one. Let me see. Let me only give uptime for now so that. Oh, okay. Source bash rc. But this is how you do. Okay. So I will anyhow, don't worry about this one. But yeah, that is what bash rc and bash profile is to create aliases, and you can do much more than that. So yeah. And that is where you will select that umask value. So and why umask value you should not give at the last is it will consider it as an alias. So that's the reason we should give on top of this user specific environments, right? On top of that, because previously if we give, it will throw some error actually. So that's the reason it's recommended to give after this source global definition. You have this one, right? So you do that. Okay. So yeah, this is how you do the umask. Make it persistent for root user as well as a normal user. For normal user, it is vi slash home slash the username. So let me just mention the username for now and dot bash rc. And this is what you see. Okay. So yeah. And lastly, once I save and source, right? Source dot bash rc, or you can even do source dot bash underscore profile. Either way, it should. Can one temporarily deactivate the umask value? Obviously, I'm about to tell that. So, how to get the umask value for, let's say, again, let me get to Michael. So the umask value is 002, right? So, how to get to the default umask value? Sorry, default permissions. We just make umask 000. That's it. And make it persistent. So this guy, whatever files created by this guy. So let me touch new file and mkdir new dir to, let's say, ls-ld new star. You see, 777 for directory, 666 is for file. So Simply we deactivated the whole umask concept itself for a user. And this is how you will easily understand, or this is the actual default value for a file and directory. Okay. So is there any doubts? Any more doubts in this one? Let me quickly open the question paper. And we didn't saw how to change the permission of it, right? So what about changing from umask 006 to, obviously you can do that, Leo. So 006 to 002 or anything you can do, but by default the umask value for a user is 002. And so let me even give it in the notes. Umask default value for root is 022. For user it is 0. Obviously you can go back, you just type umask space 002, it will be changed. And if you made it persistent, you just remove that line, because 002 is the default one, right? So yeah, you just remove it. So now we saw what is umask and how the permission works. So now we need to understand, or we need to see how to change it. That's the key, or that's for that only we need to understand all this, right? So let's see how to change it. So we have three commands. So chmod, chown, chroot, right? So chmod, sorry, chmod means uh, perm, like file permission, not only file. So modifying file or directory. Okay. And for ownership, change the owner. For group, it is change the group ownership. So let's see how it works. Okay. So now chmod. Okay. Let's take this same files only. So this is the scenario, like as a root user, almost any files you can change, but as a end user, or like as a typical user, you can do a chmod to your own files. Okay, so let's see. For Michael's file, he can change it, right? So by as of now, the directory's permission is full permission is there. So how to make it as no permission? What is the command? Let's see, someone gets it. Chmod, some number, and new dir. What is that number? It should be no permission. Perfect. It is 000. Enter. So now you see only D will be there. There will be zero permission for this guy. Sorry, this directory. So that's how you do the changes to any directory or any permission you want. So let's do for a file also. So let's say this file should be, and again, so a file won't have execute permission, right? So let's add execute permission. So chmod, in order to add the execute permission, as of now it is 666, right? So 777. Let's make it this one as full permission. Let's see, right? So, or if you don't want 777, let's say you want 600 or anything, you can change it right away. It will be changed on the fly, right? So it is like how to say, it is seamless and it is easy for you to understand how it works, right? And again, this file is owned by this guy. So let's see pwd, right? So let me go to /temp and do fetch the same file1 and do ls-l file1. Okay, 666. That's fine. So let's do chmod 555. So now let's come to a different to user, Frank. Okay, cd temp ls-l file1. Obviously, this file is owned by Michael. So now if I do chmod 777 for file1, you see, operation not permitted because obviously this file is owned, or ownership of that file is Michael, right? And the group ownership is also Michael. So now let me explain it in this way. The same file, let me change the group ownership, ls-l file1. And why I'm using temp is the /home directory. By default, this guy can't even cd to that directory. Okay, so who is that? Frank, right? So that's the reason I done it in the temp. You can do it in any path if you are using a root user, but for a typical user, you should like he will have access only to his home path or temp, right? So now let's do a chmod. So let's first thing, let's see what and all directories he can, or group he can do. The chmod. Uh, so now instead of chmod, now we need to change the ownership, right? Or group ownership. So you just do ch group sysadms to file1. Why? Because yeah, even though he owns this file, that group he is not part of, right? So in that case, obviously it will throw that error. Let me user mod -G sysadms to Michael. Now I switch back to Michael and do cd temp and now if I try, it will change. Since he is not part of sysadmins, he can't change it, or he is not allowed to change it. So now it is ls-ld file1. It is sysadmins. And let's say id Frank. Let's say this guy is also part of, and I didn't explain this option yesterday session, so I will explain this append -ag. Okay, so we'll explain in a moment. So sysadms or Frank. Okay, so now if I switch to Frank and cd temp id, if you see, is part of sysadms also. So ideally he can change the permission, right? So chmod 777 file1. Why he can't, even though he's part of the group ownership? Why? Because ownership or user ownership is different compared to your group ownership. Obviously, group also owns that file, but as a user, he has literally the whole rights to do whatever he wants with that file. He can rename that file, he can remove a permission, add a permission, anything. But as a group owner, this guy can't, as the Frank can't do that, right? So even though he delegate to the same group, he can't. So that's the concept, or that's how secure security in your Linux works. So now let me quickly uh, derail and we will let me quickly explain this user mod -ag because I didn't explain that in last session. So in this user mod, you guys might have understood, and -g is also fine. But what is this -a? So -a means it is append. So append means, so let's see, let's come back to root user. So the user before that, let me see who are all the users in the server. So let's take Martin. Okay, so he's part of sysadmins. So now let's say he should have access to, or he should be added to sysadmin he is part of, right? He should be added to sysadms as well as a wheel group, right? So he should be added to both these groups and okay, only these two groups, let's say. So as of now, he is not part of either of those groups, right? As you see. So if you do user mod -g, so let me show first for G, sysadms Martin. It won't throw any error and it will work fine. But you will see that issue that it will replace the existing group, right? So this is a simple example of how like how basic it like your Linux would be. But this concept, it won't even work, or you will never encounter this kind of blunder. It is a blunder issue actually in your Windows, like in your settings and all. You will never see this kind of small issue, but it is a major one. If it is like, let's say this guy is having 50 groups, and if you try to add only one group, that will be replacing the whole 50 groups. Okay, so in that case, you should not do this one actually. Instead, let me revert it back. User mod -g. He was part of sysadmin, right? Martin. So this is what it was previously. So how we can add that guy to multiple groups without messing with the existing groups. So you just do user mod -ag. So A is to append. So append means it will add the another or the groups you mentioned at the last of this group section. Right. So now you mentioned sysadms, comma, what other group we mentioned? Wheel, right? So wheel to market. Now it works, right? So that's the usage, or always try to use this user mod command, right? So let me even give it in the chat, sorry, in the notes, that always try to use user mod -ag. I recommend you to do that because even if you add a single group also, it will do hyphen, it will replace actually. That's the issue. Just now we saw, right? Always you do -ag because let's say you forget to do this ID before changing that, you can't even know, or you don't even know what is the previous groups he was part of. Let's say he was part of hundreds of groups. You will never know, and you should ask that user only that, okay, how many groups you were part of before. It will create a mess, right? So always while you make any user based changes like user ID or group ID or any groups changes, always take a ID output and do a cat of that easy password of that guy. Okay, so that's, I recommend that because even though you forget it, it will be staying in this kitty session. So simply you can scroll back or do whatever you want. It will be already printed and it is documented. So easily you can get the old info. But if you don't even print it or if you forget it, that's it, right? So that's what. So let's come back to the permission. So now we change the group ownership. So how about the actual owner of that file, right? So Now let's go back to the same file, ls-l file 1. So as a root user, you can change the ownership to any file, sorry, any user you want. So from Michael, let's change to Frank of file 1. You see, it didn't throw any error. It is changed seamlessly. Now the ch own command. So actually you can ignore the ch group command itself. Why? Because using the ch own only, you can change the group ownership. So let's say Frank colon, not semicolon, colon sysadmin. So previously it was sysadms. Now it is sysadmin. You see, it did work. So instead of you mentioning the ch group command, using the ch own means ownership command itself, you can use to change the group ownership also in the same command by mentioning the colon as separator, right? So now we change the group from sysadms to sysadmin, right? So that's how you will change. So now let me quickly explain you the other method which you will, it is easy. First thing, you need not remember all these concepts, but that is easy again. This is also easy once you're getting used to that. So let's see how this one works. So the same chmod. So you can do view plus or minus operator. So plus means add the permission. Minus means remove the permission. Just like that, you can do that. So already there is permission for 555, right? So now let me remove the group permission to 0. So now what and all I need to remove? Chmod g minus r. That's it, right? R and x. If I do file, you're getting the point, right? So, but the catch here is you should do for each and every like user separately, group separately, and others, right? So that is the issue here, but it will be done. Instead of you remembering everything, you just need to remember plus or minus. And how to, let me remove for every, for others also. So O minus Rx. You see, no permission. So let me add the permission. Chmod G plus RWX. You're getting the point, right? So how about chmod U plus W only I need to add. Yeah. So it is just like that. It is very easy, but you need to do separately for each and everything. And for U, it is user. G, it is group. O, it is others. And plus, it is to add the permission. Minus to remove. So this is for the example. You can simply refer this on. Yeah. Very easy and straightforward. You can do that. So let's quickly see a exam question so that easily you can Remember it. So this one and yeah, Q6. You did not understand the CH group. It is the same CH mod, or it is just the ownership of the group will be changed, Leo. Okay, so just let me show you that. So you just see now it is a sysadmin is the group or the group ownership of this file called as file1, right? So now you just type ch group or chgrp and change it to, let's say, wheel and file1. That's it. You see, only the group ownership will be affected, not the actual or the user ownership won't be affected, right? So that's the thing. But you can ignore the ch group altogether. If you are using ch own only, you can do the same operation. So ch own frank colon sysadmin, right? So yeah, instead of doing yeah, Michael typed everything. That's great. Yeah, so perfect. And now let's see this question. First thing is create the directory slash home manager. So first thing mkdir slash home slash manager. Now group ownership of this should be sysadms. How to change the group? Just now we saw chgrp sysadms to this path. And there is a thing here. So mkdir hyphen p you should do. So what is the use of this hyphen p means? It is a parent directory. So you are mentioning this. Obviously it will create, but always use this hyphen p if you are mentioning multiple path while creating. So in this case it is fine. So let's say you are mentioning one more directory which is not existing now. So let's say one. So I will show you with an example so that easily you can understand. So if I do this one, you see, cannot create directory, it will throw this error. But if you do hyphen p, you see, it works. Why? Because now with this hyphen p, you are mentioning that this is the parent directory for this path. This is the parent directory for this path. So since this slash manager itself is not there, it can't identify the parent path for one, right? So it will throw that error that no such file is there. You're getting right. So only while creating a new directory, many directories at the same time, you will or you should use this hyphen p. Okay, so that's what. And ch group, this one. So now the directory should have full permission for all members of sysadmin group, but not to the other users except root. So the point is, let's execute this one. Okay, so already mkdir we done. Let's first thing let's list it. So ls-ld slash home slash manager, right? So this file is owned by root, both are root. So now let's do this one. Now it is owned by sysadmins, like the group ownership. So the current permission is this one. What is this permission? Can someone mention in the chat? Let's see. Perfect. So 755. So 755 is the permission, and what they're asking is the directory should have full permission for all the members. It is not as of now, that's fine. all the members of sysadmin. So this also should be W, right? But not to the others, other users. Means others should not have any permission and except root user. And this file is owned by root, right? So this guy has full permission and this group should also have full permission, but others should have no permission. So this is the thing. And what is the permission here? So it is 770, right? So now let's do chmod 770 to this path. Perfect. It is done. So let's see the next one. Files created in future under this path should get the same group ownership. So this is a new concept which we didn't saw till now. And this concept is called a special permission. Okay, so for that only, um, yeah, that's the pending one. So special permission, and we are yet to see the ACL. Okay, so once we are done with that, the whole permission itself will be done. So let's quickly see what is special permission. It is very easy and straightforward, but let's see. It is, let me mention as. Okay, so first thing is SUID, the next one is SGID, the last one is sticky bit. And to be frank, you will never use special permission in your production servers. It is just there for, let's say, for your exam point of view, you are just learning this one, and some interviews they might ask this one. So yeah, it's a very rare scenario you would encounter special permissions or you would use that, to be frank. But fine, let's see. So first thing, what is this one? So it is nothing but super user or um, yeah, super user UID. So as a user, you are going to provide the super user. So for the time being, that or okay, let me explain once I finish typing this one. So a special GID, sorry, not super user, it is special UID, special GID. Why? Because it actually special UID doesn't make sense and you will never use that for sure, but it is there. Okay, so let me tell that. So user uh, other than owner do not delete or okay. So first thing is SUID. So all these three are so first thing, first two is applicable only for directories, not for files. Files also you can enable, but it doesn't make sense. Okay, so what is this one? So first thing, SUID. So SUID is nothing but if there is a SUID enabled in a directory, right? So it will so whatever files inside the directory, it will work as a sudo access. So let's say a file having a reboot command inside that directory. That file is a not a let's say it is a script or something. It does need a root access to perform some operation in that script, right? So if that sticky bit, not sticky bit, SUID is enabled on that directory, it works like that user or that file will execute as a root user or only for that file. Let's see how it actually works, but sometimes it won't work. So please don't mind that because it is bit finicky tool, this SGID especially, sorry, SUID especially. So let's see, just a sec. So you have RWX, R-X, right? So in order to use this SUID, SGID, or sticky bit, we are used to only three permissions, right? Actually, there is not three, there is four, right? So what it is? So no permission or no special permission is for 0, and for these all it is 4 is for this one. This is 2. This will be 1. Okay. So 0 means no permission. 4 is for sticky. Sorry, 4 is for SUID. 2 is for SGID, means group ID. 1 is for sticky bit. Okay, so let's see. So by default 0, since it is 0, we never mention it. Only for special permission. So yeah, after that, if you have 0 here, obviously you should mention it. Okay, so yeah. Now let's say it is a 4777 for this new directory, right? Now if you see RWS, and the permissions are, you see, full permissions are there for that path. We didn't change anything. Sorry, I given 777, right? So that's the reason it is full permission, but RWS. So you see S is for special permission, enable for this guy. So now, anyhow, it is root owned, right? So let me change that. CH own Frank colon sys ADMS new dar 4. Now let's switch to Frank CD temp, right? Okay. Let's say an LD new dar 4. Now let's do CD new dar 4 VI test. Let's say you have init 6, which is to reboot the server. And if I run that, right? So user root is logged in, you see, user with, but it did tried, right? But if it is not, it will throw that error. User root is logged in. Why? Because root session is opened in this this one, and there is one more root session is active. So if those sessions are closed, this guy or whatever we done, it will be executed, right? So now you're getting the point. So but if I done that without that sticky bit, it will throw error, right? So that's the thing. So like that, anything related to root user or anything, so only for that time being or only for that file, it will be used. And sometimes it won't actually, to be frank. So that's also you should consider. And that's the main reason SUID never will be used. SGID will be used actually in some cases. So let's see how SGID works. So let me come back, the same temp. So let me create a new directory. So um, it can be, let's call it as folder. So LSFNLD folder, right? So now 755, that is the default permission. So now let's change the, okay, before that, let me um, go inside that and create a file. Okay, so let me attach a file 1. So as of now, it is owned by root and root, right? So let's come back and let's do a ch group and change the group ownership to sysadmin to that folder. And now if I go inside that folder and again do the touch, still it will be root and root. That's like a obvious thing, right? So it won't. So in Windows, it does. It will do the hierarchy. Like if the file or folder is owned by a different group, it will follow that hierarchy. Whereas in Linux, it doesn't. It depends on the person whose shell it has been running those commands, right? So yeah. So in order for that to be avoided, you should come back and do ch mod only, and two, you can use the same permission as of now. What is the permission for folder? The permission is 755, right? So 755 folder. Now you should ls ld folder. So I just added two before. So before it used to be zero, right? There was no special permission. Now you see r-s. So now it is sysadmin. So now if I do go inside folder and do a touch file 3, it should be sysadmin. And if I do mkdir new dir 1 or something, that is also owned by sysadmin, the group ownership, right? So this makes sense because in Windows it does by default, but in Linux it doesn't, unfortunately. So you are the one who need to add this sticky bit. Okay, so yeah, that is what SGID is about. And this last sticky bit, right? So this is also a very finicky tool, or this option. So let's see how this works. So let me again go back. We are in temp, right? So let's create a directory, new one or something, right? So ls new one, sorry, ls-l d new one. So it is 755. So now let's do chmod 1755. So now this changes the color, and you see there is a T at the last of the others. So now, so this means anyone, actually the owner itself is messed up, right? So ch, it is root. So obviously no one will have permission. Let's change to Frank and sysadmin. New one. Okay. So now let me switch to um, Michael. I hope. Okay, Michael is not part of sysadmin. So /temp. So now let's see whether I can um, rename this directory, right? So move new one to new two, operation not permitted, and whether I can remove this directory, new two. Sorry, let's see. New two is already there, is it? Okay, new one. Okay, there was a new two directory, it seems. So fine. But this new one, now let's try new one to new two. Yeah, it is not working. And for removal also, new one, not permitted, right? So yeah, and if you cd to that and touch one or something, you see, you can't do anything. Others don't have any permission to do inside this path, right? So that's what sticky bit is. They can't make any changes to a directory where sticky bit is enabled. And ironically, for slash temp, right? You see, sticky bit is enabled for temp. So that is the kind of trivia fact for sticky bit. Okay, so means slash temp is like every permission or any user is can do anything in this slash temp. That's what the use of temp or temporary path is, right? So yeah, so that is what special permissions is. And now coming back to our question, so what they're asking is files created in future under slash home manager should get the same group ownership. So what you should do, chmod before we given 770 slash home slash manager. How about now? Can someone mention in the chat what would be the permission you should mention? What is the number? Let's see who gets it right. Not understood. Okay. So the question is files created in the future under this path, right? So should get the same group ownership. So for group ownership, what is the, so since it is group, it is SGID. What is the SGID? 2, right? So you just mentioned 2770. So that's the reason you see group will be carry forward, right? So if you, sorry, now this one, yeah, this one. So inside folder, this sysadmin is being carried forward, you see? So that's the main thing. So again, this is a very niche question and you will never expect this kind of things in your work environment. Very rarely it will be asked or used in your work environment, but in exam they might ask since it is a concept is there, right? So that's the thing. So if you mention chmod 2770 operation not, okay, it is Michael, right? Now it should work. So now I do cd home manager and I do ls-ld this one. You see there is a S here, which means if I do a touch inside this path, um, okay, it is not. It's a touch to, yeah, okay, there is already a file which we created before, right? So that's the reason. Sorry, it is a directory. So now, if you do mkdir3, you see, it is carry forwarding that same ownership, right? So that's the thing. So previously it was not. We created that mkdir-p we created, right? /1. So while we created, it is not, it won't work actually, but after creation, or after mentioning this sticky, sorry, SGID, it does carry forward the group ownership throughout that whole path. So, yeah, that's how it works. Any file and directories, not only files, even for directory, it does work. So that's the answer for that question. And so ACL, we can see it's already time, but yeah, we can see ACL in the next session. But in order to summarize today's session, let me, right? So first thing, what is the file? Let me copy everything to the Notepad++, so that is right. This is this all we saw yesterday, right? So file permissions. So first thing in file permission, it is read, write, and execute, and there is a special permission. So and the directories must have execute permission. Okay, so that's very, very important. And files by default, it won't have. Obviously, you can enable it later. And so I just explained what is the breakup of each and every info you see while you do the LL or ls-l. And lastly, we see what is the first thing you need to dissect these two and see whether it is a file or a directory. And once that is found, what is this breakup of this all? So you just dissect this like these three forms a group, and that is for not group. These three forms a separate permission for user. These three is for group. These three is for others, right? So and there is this format or formula you can call it as, and this is like a forming RWX. You just wherever you see 0, you just mention hyphen. Wherever you see 1, the respective row header, you can give it the permission, right? So you just remember 421. Very, very easy and straightforward. And we saw the UMask concept, right? So the default UMask value for a root account, it is 022, and for user it is 002, and UMask must be subtracted from the default permission. And the default permission for a file, it is 666. For a directory, it is 777. Okay, so did I mention it? No, is it default? I mentioned it here, right? So 666 and 777, and you just subtract it. You will get the actual permission for that files, and this is the config file. You will edit it. So etc login.diffs. This is the file in which you edited the UMask value for root user. Change UMask for, and for a normal user, it will be the bash RC file. You will edit it for a typical user, right? So that's what. Um, yeah, this is for a normal user, right? So that's one we saw, and we did saw this append. So do like this separately, and how to change the permission chmod own group, and we saw the other method. This is the easiest method, and but you should do it separately for each and every one, like group separately, owner and user separately, if you want to change everything at the same time. Okay, so you can't, first thing in this method, so we should do it separately. And we saw exams question and the special permissions. Okay, so we are like 70% in the permissions, so we're still pending ACL, and yeah, only ACL is pending for permissions. In next session we'll see ACLs, and yeah, and you can reach out to me, Leo, if you still have doubts. So I already have Michael's contact. Okay, so you can reach out to me. So to that, if the UMask once values change, it can be switched back to default after meeting up the requirement. Yeah, you can do that for sure. So why it is not stopping? Okay, so